Hi and welcome to the MCA Prodcast, your fix for everything innovative in advertising production. I'm Pat Murphy and I've been working in this industry for more than 35 years now. I've seen a lot of changes, but know there's plenty more around the corner. Each week on the podcast, you'll get to hear from one of the movers and shakers who are shaping the world of advertising production for the future. And we'll dive into some of the key challenges facing our sector today and how we're best placed to overcome them. Today we're talking to Matt Cooper, the founder and CEO of Little Black Book, the platform for the global creative community. It has a member list made up of most of the world's most creative companies, from the biggest ad agencies and networks, as well as the world's top production and post-production companies. Matt, welcome to our podcast. It's a great pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Pat. Great to be here.
Now, I've known you for a very, very long time. We're not going to say how far back, but let's start from the beginning. Matt, you've been working in this business in advertising, in post-production, asset management for approximately 30 years now, and have been lucky enough to travel to many countries and meet and befriend many leaders in ad land. But what was before that for you?
Before that? Well, that's interesting. So I started at Saatchi's in 1988, I think, 87, 88. Before that, I had a clothing business, funny enough, before I got into this world of advertising. I guess actually I was in advertising just before that. I worked for a small company called Conway who created typo type stuff. But before that, I had a clothing business. I was in the rag trade.
Wow. And then how did you get into Saatchi? I was probably there at the same time as you were.
I think you were. I had this clothes shop at a very young age, kind of a bit of a strange dream. Our road got closed in the town we had the shop in, and I had to close the shop. So I looked for a job. I found an advert in the Standard for this job in a company called Saatchi Saatchi, which I knew nothing about. I think I was the 80th interview, which is another quite funny story. Somehow I managed to land the job and never looked back.
Fantastic. You were in the post room at Saatchi, weren't you?
In the post room, dispatch department, absolutely.
Yeah. And then what happened after that?
What happened after that? I guess a few different things there. Some quite comical things at Saatchi Saatchi, as you can imagine, in the 80s.
Oh, I remember very well.
Exactly.
None of which we can mention, of course.
Exactly.
Mostly.
We can't talk about too much of that stuff. I then moved across to the Mill, where a similar sort of role that moved slightly into library and production environment. Things changed rapidly there because I saw ways to move video, really. That kind of changed my whole life.
And you were the original founder, I suppose, of Beam TV, which I'm sure a lot of people will remember. And is Beam TV still going? I guess it is.
It is, in some way, shape or form. I think it's a very different Beam TV now. I mean, Beam was a fantastic time. It came out of really us doing at the Mill, Gladiator with Ridley Scott and delivering cuts in an incredibly slow way. We told him we could do the special effects. Obviously, we were in London, he was in LA, and we were delivering poorly. So, someone, a good friend of both of ours, yelled, "Send him an MPEG." This was the early days of the internet. The internet wasn't really a thing there, for moving film at least. And, we worked out how to do that. And that was just an incredible time for me personally.
And you and I worked very closely together when I was at Leo Burnett at that time, collaborating on helping you to put the functionality in place. I remember it very well. And then, of course, I became slightly a competitor when I went over to AdStream.
Yeah.
Interesting days.
You were one of the first. There was yourself, there was Bob Isherwood at Saatchi's, and a couple of others like John Hegarty, I think, saw the early usage of what it could do. And it feels like a long time ago now, but it changed the way we all worked, Beam TV. It really did.
So tell me, what was the inspiration then for LBP?
Well, a lot of it was inspired by Beam TV. I was travelling an awful lot, as you said. I was lucky enough, really, to be going from New York to LA to London to Paris to wherever, and working with and seeing some of the best production companies, agencies, post houses in the world. And whenever I'd come back, people would say to me, who's good in New York, or who's good in LA, or who's good in Paris? And we started to put this information together and created what was originally a small little black book, one for London, one for Paris, one for New York, one for Cannes, one for LA. And I think it was John Hegarty who said to me, you could do a lot more than what this book is currently. And that pushed it further, really.
Yeah, but what would he know, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I remember those little black books, those kind of things that you used to send around.
Yeah.
A lot of people only know it now as an online platform, but don't remember it as it originally started. But I remember it very well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very basic thing. And I think, when we started it, some of the information that it had in it was very useful to people. And, what John and others realised, but there was an opportunity to do things that weren't available right then. I mean, I was one of those people probably like yourself, and I was at the mill. We were spending a lot of money advertising things like Beam TV, and they were also local. If you're a post house or a production company, you had a couple of places you could advertise. If you're an agency, again, a couple of places, but they were local. The idea of LBB was really based on what I created at Beam TV, a global platform. And a lot of people don't think of it as a platform, but it is. It's a platform in its true sense. It's not a publication. It's something very different.
Now, it's been going for quite a while now. How has LBB evolved since its original inception?
Well, actually, apart from the book, we created the concept of this very early on. It was day one, really. We always thought that if we went, as we've always called it, bottom up. So, I came last from the post world, and the post world is obviously the end of the process. But we thought if we could go from post to production to agency, we would then get the brand viewing and the brand joining, because at that point, the world was changing so quickly. When I started this thing, really, it was advertising agencies choosing for a commercial, for example, a director who would choose a post house, or, from the top. Client picking agency, agents picking production company picking director, down to post house. What we saw, or we knew, as you did at the same time, was there was a massive change coming. And if we could create a platform that could inspire the end client on who they'd work with in the new way of working, we foresaw big clients having in-house departments. We saw that agencies were working different ways with post houses like the mill. So really, if I'm honest with you, it stuck to the exact same plan, and we bolted bits on as we go. It's a news channel with an award channel archive.
So originally I don't want to call them customers, but originally the people who engaged with LBB, the platform, were creatives, mainly agency people. Has that changed now?
Yeah, massively. I think the end client or advertiser has now overtaken the agency.
Wow.
Yeah, really. And that's not because the agency have stopped using it. The agency use it more and more each day. But the end client, they want to know who they can post with, who they can produce with, which agencies to work with. And we've got it all in one place. Every creative company really of size or quality are working with us now. So if you're a client, you can come and view everything free. There's no cost to it. So it's pretty obvious.
And you have this one global platform, or do you provide localized versions of the same thing?
You can view it as you want. So, if you want to come and view the French content, you can, or the American, Australian, Canadian, whatever, you can. But it's got a global view with local filters. So you can filter it not just by country, but also by what you're looking for. So if you're looking for Australian production, you can view by Australian production. So you can see it how you want to see it, but that's the truth.
Amazing. Now, LBB is also hosting industry events, conferences, and you have the Immortal Awards. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the Immortal Awards is something we're immensely proud of. So this started 5 years ago, back at the days of Beam TV. What I really liked about Beam was that it created digital entry systems for all of the big award shows. So Cannes, the Clios, D&AD, the Andes, all of those big shows were entered using Beam TV software. So you had a file, put it with the system, and bang, you could push it to all those different award shows. Unfortunately, as Beam grew and we kind of left that bit, disappeared. But a lot of people said to us as we started Rock Black Book, why didn't you start an award show? And my response for 6 or 7 years was, the world doesn't need another award show. So the last bloody thing we need. So, we sat and thought about this, and I always kind of dreamed that, why don't we open an award show? And again, I said to John Hegarty one day, we're thinking about this thing. What do you think? And his response was, there is room for another award show, but you've got to do it differently. And I sat and listened to John and listened to various others. And I think what we found out was that, the award show of today, perhaps, and I'm never knocking these guys, but are perhaps not quite fitting with the business as it is. So agencies don't have billions of pounds to spend on entering awards. Perhaps the way things are awarded aren't quite as they should be. So, the way we created the Immortal Awards was free for all of our members to enter. It was another perk of being a member of LBB. But it had to be hard to win. It had to be category free. And as John said when we started this, agencies are entering lots and lots of stuff that they really need to. So we maxed out to 5 awards per office, and it really means that we get the best work. And we judge it very differently. So we judge locally, regionally, and globally. And what that does, Pat, it gives you a different view. So, the UK jurors are looking at the best of the UK. That work is then judged alongside Irish, Dutch, German, French work in a regional final, then up to a global final. So all the way through, you're filtering and filtering and filtering. So by the time you give awards out, you really have got the best work in the world. And today, in 5 years, we've only given out 20 statues.
Oh, that's amazing. So who do you find for the judging or the adjudication of these awards?
Yeah, that's a good question. From day one, we've blended it right up. So, what you tend to find with award shows, and I've sat on so many of those juries, is groups. So you might find CMOs judging client stuff. You might find directors judging director stuff, whether it's best cut or whatever it might be. We blend it. So the local jury will be a blend of production company owners, directors, producers from agencies, creative from agencies, strategists, and of course end clients. And what the clients really like is they're judging in a completely different way to the way they normally judge. They're judging creatively. They're looking at more than just perhaps the effectiveness, but also how creative something was. So it's really interesting.
And you do other things as well. You do other kind of conferences. You put me on a conference in New York a few years back. And of course, we've got the event coming up in Cannes in just a few weeks' time from now. Tell us a little bit about how your beach and the events that are happening on your beach has changed from last year. What's the difference?
Well, it's evolution again. I mean, we've been doing a beach in Cannes now for 13 years. When we launched a business, it's one of the first things we did because we believed there wasn't a place in Cannes where all the different sort of people would be. So, that meant post-production, agency, client. That wasn't really happening. So we created this environment. And I guess we've learned over the years what people want to do, what they want to converse, what they want to talk about. And really our beach is a place where people do business, where they meet to discuss business. And so, we sat and thought about what we could do down there. And over the years, we've created panels and talks that, in my opinion, and I'm saying this not to be mean, but I think a lot of these panels end up being presentations.
That's right.
So people pitch to be on a panel or pitch to do a presentation, and they tend to be presentations that like sales pitches. And
yeah.
I'm not sure people want to see this.
And a lot of other conferences, if I may say, not only do delegates have to pay to turn up, but you don't get to play or be on part of a panel unless you've also paid, which means I find that, you're not really getting the people who are the change makers.
Yeah, so I don't see a benefit in that. And I think what we've tried to do is that, I've been going to Cannes now, probably like yourself, Pat, for about 25 years.
I can't even remember when the first time was.
Yeah, without missing a year. And I think you learn, and I think, Cannes for me has always been a place that you respect and admire. It's a place that has always had a creative edge to it. And we tried to put something together this year that is a nod back to perhaps how I remember Cannes as a delegate. And there'd be very few things on, and you'd go and see everything. You'd want to watch everything, whether it be the car reels or, Dave Droger talking about whatever he was talking about. I think, what we tried to do this year at the beach is something that we've really never done before. We've had many good people speak, but we've put together a whole week of talks, and the concept is to do something that's called Better Together, Advertising 2023. So we've pulled production companies, agencies, post houses, and big client names together to discuss how we work together. And that is exciting to me. I mean, really, it's an offline version of the site because, the site's where people come to discuss things and find things. But this is exciting because I think, it starts with clients talking about what they really want. And what we'll do over the week is we'll break down who does what, discussing things from AI to virtual production to how do you put a value on creativity, and we'll discuss together how we should work together.
And of course, we talk about change, and you mentioned it earlier, which is one of the reasons you set up LBB in the first place. But change is happening now quicker than ever. So all of these various different things, it's an absolute minefield, isn't it? So, there's an opportunity for people to listen to the experts in all these different areas.
That's what we hope. And, I think that, we've spoken about this for a long time. I think that, the business is changing at a rate of knots. And I think, you've got a couple of sorts of companies in this world now, those that are changing and evolving and those that are sticking to what they do best. But there needs to be a place where we discuss how we work together, because some people are unfortunately getting slightly left behind.
And I gather when you announced the fact that you were doing this, you had a huge number of people wanting to be on the panels, wanting to come and see the panels. And, people are going to be listening to this podcast. How do people get a chance to come and sit and listen to some of these panel sessions?
Well, if they go to lbbonline.com, they can find the link to where they can apply to come and look. There's hundreds and hundreds of people listening every day. I think we've already broke way past where we were last year, and we've never been hit so hard. I mean, every year we get hit hard by people who want to pitch and present stuff. And I think what's changed this year is that we've spent an awful lot of time, as I said earlier, building this business to get to where it is, where clients have become our biggest reader. I think what we've really realised now is that, what we always hoped was that clients want to speak as much as the agency do about creativity and the business and value of creativity and where they fit in it, with whether it be an internal agency in someone like Squarespace or a production environment, something like booking.com. They need to talk and they need to find talent, Pat, they need to find partners. They need to discuss the way they work. So we're inundated. I mean, thankfully, I should say, I guess, but it's been fascinating, actually. Fascinating.
Wasn't that easy, though, for you? I remember a few months ago when we were talking about getting this up and running, but it's a bit of a challenge. You still have to have all the logistics in place. And there's always been a buzz around the LBB beach over the years. Everybody wanted to gravitate around the LBB beach, but more so this year than ever before. It's quite incredible what you've achieved there.
Well, thanks. I mean, look, I think what we've done is we've created an environment where people can discuss and talk about business, right, in a very open way. And I think this year will just add a whole new level of possibility, because, client can be speaking directly to the production company on a panel, which is rare. You really get the opportunity. I think the interesting thing is that everyone wants it as much as the other person. And my belief is most of these conferences are missing this. They're either a procurement conference or an advertiser's conference or a production conference. And I think we've got to get rid of those kind of silos and just think about how we make this work together. That's the key word, together.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you've managed to do is you've mixed up the panel guests really nicely. So you've got a good mix of marketers, you've got production people, you've got creatives. I mean, people at the top of their field. And that's not the sort of thing that you get at some of these other conferences. And they are people who know what they're talking about. So it's actually not just a presentation, as you said. It's a panel where people can have a proper discussion and answer some of the questions from the audience as well.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, I think I'd give credit to our editors for that. Some of the content our guys are writing, and this is where LBB is different to most, is that our writers understand post-production, agency, and client fluently. There's no difference in language. They understand those things. But putting the panels together is a challenge, because you don't only have to think about different job types, you have to balance these things, which is a challenge. Easier for us because we're an international business, right? So it's much easier for us because we have people from all over the world who want to be on these panels. But it is a challenge balancing some of these things. It is, as is judging,
And I think you've chosen some topics that are quite, I wouldn't call them controversial, but quite challenging in the title. So how do we put a value on creativity is a great title, I think, because I think there's always this race to the bottom on price when it comes to evaluating creativity. So that's going to be a really interesting one. And then you've got me, strangely, on one of your panels. So you must have been scraping the barrel there, right?
Of course. Look, I mean, that you're on one about production and what clients really want. I mean, Pat, you know this stuff. You're working with a big percentage of the world's clients, and you know what these guys want. And you're going to be alongside, Steve from the APA and Ben from Craft, and there's going to be some good people there with a client and various others. But I think what they're going to be, these things, is meaty. I think they're going to be meaty discussions.
They really are.
Value on creativity is one of those things that we talk about constantly, don't we? Agency of records and how do you sell creativity now? What does it mean? I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. And the blend of people we've got on these panels is phenomenal. So, I mean, the concept is better together, but let's see what happens on the day. I think there's going to be some quite thorough discussion.
Anybody who's listening to this can go to your website. they can see the panel sessions, the topics, and also the panelists who are going to be on those panels as well. So
yeah,
well, what's the website address?
It's lbbonline.com.
Fantastic. Matt, thanks very much. And I'll tell you what, we are so proud at MCA to be supporting you on this week of panel sessions. It's the first time we've done this with you. It's been an experience going through the last 2 or 3 months, crafting it and shaping it with you. I'm dead chuffed with it. Can't wait to see you in Cannes in a couple of weeks' time. It was so great catching up. I look forward to seeing you. But finally, before we jump off here, I need to ask you that question that we always ask any of our guests on the podcast is, what is your favourite ad of all time?
VW Snowplow, without any shadow of a doubt.
That's one of the very, very early ads.
It's just, I get asked this question a lot. And I think that when you watch it, and I watched it again, I did an interview for a Finnish marketing magazine the other day. I sometimes try and change it up because there's others that I love, like we all do.
Yeah.
There's loads of ads that we love. But when I watch that one back, it's just perfect.
It is.
It's just absolutely perfect. And, it's selling a small German car. It's just brilliant. The film, the words, it's just, to me, it's a perfect ad.
Terrific. Matt, thank you so much. Today, we talked to Matt Cooper, my friend Matt Cooper, founder and CEO of LBB. And I want to say a big thank you to you, Matt, for talking to me today. We had a very insightful conversation about the LBB platform and the preparation for Cannes Week, which is not far away. To find out more about the MCA Prodcast, please head to theprodcast.com, where you'll find details on all my guests, links to the favourite ads, and full transcriptions of all the episodes. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, please email us at podcast@murphycobb.com. I'm Pat Murphy, CEO of MCA. Do come and connect with us on LinkedIn or Instagram, of which all the links in the notes for this episode will be there. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again to you, Matt, my team at MCA, and to my production team at What Goes On Media. Thanks for listening. See you next time.